Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
Good. So I have a hand for you that was played back in February at Parks.
Okay.
So the hand, it's 2-5.
Mm-hmm.
The effective stacks are the main villain in the hand. He has 500 and I cover.
Okay.
So there's one limp from under the gun. I'm under the gun +1 with Ace of Diamonds, King of Hearts, and I raised to 25.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cutoff, small blind, and limper all call.
So the pot's like 100.
Yeah, about 100. Yep.
Okay. So 2-5, 500 effective. Is this the 1K game at the Parks? This is like a 1K.
It's 1K. I mean, I have over 1K. But
okay.
The main villain,
right, he's just short. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go to the flop. So you've got Ace King, cut off small blind, and the limper call. Okay.
So the flop comes Ace of Clubs, Deuce of Clubs, 3 of Spades.
Ace of Clubs, Deuce of Clubs, 3 of Spades. Okay, so obviously you've got to be a little bit wary of the fact that there are 3 players in the hand, but I would still think that your hand definitely fares to be the best hand. And I'm going to be honest with you, like before the COVID crisis, like playing in some of these Texas games, man, a lot of these guys love, like, first of all, you can't pry Ace X suited out of their hands, but sometimes they'll call with like Ace X off, so... Put it this way: you're going to get more. You'll get more action on this board than you would on like King Deuce 3. Is my point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the main villain in this hand is like, is under the gun limper, and he's just like super loose passive, probably playing like 65-70% of hands, and anytime he like connects with the board, he just has a hard time getting away. So, checks to me, and I bet 60.
So here about 16 to 100, okay.
And then the cutoff calls, and then the limper calls.
So it goes call next to act, and then small blind folds, and the limper calls. So the pot now is 280, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then the turn is an interesting card. It's an offsuit 5.
All right, I'm going to put it down as the 5 of hearts. So it puts a one-liner out there to a 4. So you have what's amounting to a pretty good situation on the flop, it looks like. But now the turn's a 5, so it's Ace Deuce 3 5. You have Ace King, and this was an interesting one when you emailed this in, because I could probably see if it was just the limper that you said is loose passive that plays like a pretty wide VPIP. And you had bet the flop, and only he called. I could maybe get on board for actually going for 3 straights. It starts to get dicey when you see 2 people call. I mean, theoretically, this is going to be reflected as a check most of the time. I do understand that there are front door club draws out there, but when you look at it, you're also losing to some 2-pair and stuff too. So, listen, I'm the thinnest value better in these games, like in live games, but you might start to be taking this too far if you think you're going to bet into 2 people on the turn, also bet on the river too. Right.
I mean, I was kind of planning to just like take a bet fold line on the turn here.
Well, I mean, get called by clubs and just assume that if someone raised this, they're going to have 4. I mean, that's a pretty exploitable approach, but we know that exploitable approaches usually are quite fine in live poker. So the guy checks to you again, I take it? The limper?
Yeah.
Okay, so check, yep.
And then I bet 120.
All right, so check, arrow 120 into 180. I'm hoping the cutoff folds.
Cutoff does fold.
Okay, so cutoff folds.
Which is what I want. I was just hoping that the limper would just call.
And then the limper calls?
Yeah.
All right, so now the pot's 520. Your head's up, and
the limper has about 300 left.
Okay. All right. What's the river?
So then the river comes in offsuit 8.
Offsuit 8.
Yeah.
So I remember when you had emailed me. So again, the action is that you raise over the top of a limper from +1 to 25. The cutoff, the small blind, and limper call. Board comes out ace deuce 3 with 2 clubs. Check, you bet 60. Cutoff and the limper call. Turns a 5 of hearts, puts a one-liner out there. Check, you actually bet again. 120. Cutoff folds, limper calls. Pot's 520. He's got 300 left. River's an 8. And I remember when you emailed this hand and you said that you thought this was sort of an example of, kind of a depolarization spot. And when we talk about depolarization, what I mean by depolarization in these spots, especially when I give my tips, is normally if you were to take, say, 80-90% of the player pool at this guy's table at Parks at this 1K cap game, if not more, they're not going to bet with one pair ace king on the river. 60% probably aren't even going to bet without a straight. So when you start to see that behavior, even if you're a recreational player and you don't even know the terms polarized, depolarized, but you look at the board and you play a fair amount and you realize that when somebody bets at the end, when there's a straight out there, when there's a one card straight out there, you've just seen through your experience that when the guy's called, he either has it or he's bluffing, right? I mean, that's polarization at its most simple point. And you just continue to see that. You can't help but notice it. So the way that we use that to our advantage is we start to depolarize against recreational players where they're just going to call because they think you're bluffing enough to make it profitable for them to call, because everyone else in the player pool will only bet a straight there. They won't have another value hand. It will either be a bluff or a straight. Now, I don't know necessarily if this is the best example of it. You are going to value own yourself some of the time, for sure, right? Against maybe some two pair types of hands. Other types of aces up, things like that. But I do think that you're going to get called, and it's very nice to see the clubs break out. I do think you're going to get called a fair amount by ace X. The question is whether or not you can go all in here. You might go for it. I mean, I think that this would be a much better example if the board was a little bit more, if it was a slightly different board, and maybe you were heads up the entire time, against a limper. Say you raised with aces in the cutoff over an under the gun limper, and the board came out king, 6, deuce, and he check called, and the turn was a 3, and he check called, and the river was a 4. So it was king, 6, deuce, 3, 4. And you just know he has a king, right? And you've got aces.
Right.
And then you just move all in, and you get called by king, queen, king, jack, all day long. This one's a little bit more dicey. So what happened? You checked, and what did he do?
Yeah, so I decided to move in.
Yeah.
Thinking he could call me down with ace X.
Yeah.
So he ended up tanking for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the more he tanked, the better I felt about it. And then he ended up calling, and you'll never guess what he had. He had 8-5 of clubs.
8-5 of clubs. Okay. Yeah.
So he ran into 2 pair.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had a similar call where someone ran into a weird 2 pair at the end too. In a situation, but there's a caller that's coming up at the end of the show that I think has a really interesting hand with backdoor flush. With it kind of demonstrates a really, really interesting concept about backdoor flushes. Here, you're just a little bit unlucky. But I mean, if you think he's going to call with any ace X, I don't really mind the play. I just think it's getting a little bit out there when you bet into 2 people on the turn. What's up?
What's that? No, I was going to say, I feel like if he's going to call with 8-5 there, I think he's going to call with ace X.
I don't think that he's going to fold ace X. I just think that normally you would probably be reflected a little bit, on a on a check on the turn. But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.